Ladies and gentlemen, all said at 7:32, I'm going to introduce my mom. This is my mom, Fannystar. She is a Holocaust survivor. She was born in 1920.
22.
Go for it. I'll let you tell them. She was born in 1922 in a city which is actually was the second largest Jewish community in all of Europe, was Lodz, Poland. They had over 250,000 Jews in Lodz. In 1939, the Germans came. They rounded up all the Jews.
Put in a ghetto.
They locked them up in a ghetto. And from there, her story changed. From there, life changed. From there, her life became a nightmare. Every day you would wake up wondering if you were going to live, if you were going to die. Every day you wondered if you were going to eat food, if you had food coming to you. Every day you wondered if you were going to be beaten for something you didn't do because you were just a Jew. That's all. That was the only reason why. Every day you didn't know what was going to happen to your family just because the Germans would get pissed off at you and do horrific things that were just deplorable to people. And every day you had to justify for being a Jew.
If you were lucky.
In Germany, this was called the final solution.
Mm-hmm.
The final solution was
Kill us.
the final solution was to wipe out all the Jewish race. And everybody, even to this day, it's a disputable word, but that was the final solution, was to kill a Jewish race. Not a religion, a Jewish race. They wanted to end the race, that there would be no more Jews in the world at all. That was Hitler's mission, along with the Nazis, along with a man called Himmler. He was the number 2 man to all of the Nazis. And that was his mission. With all that said, I'll let you talk to my mom, and I will let her share some of her stories. And then we will open up the mic to have a discussion about what we saw in the video. She watched it, I watched it, we all watched the video. And it was very powerful video. Very powerful. Now, she's been using that video, just so you all know, as a lecture tool with my father since 1983. The original video, those excerpts were taken from a video that was created by the British when they came into Bergen-Belsen. They had a videographer with them, just like how we do now, where everything is videographed and documented. They had to document this as well. Just so you know, the numbers on the arms, they are documented and in a book, that every Jew, that was their name and that was their number. The Germans were very meticulous. The British came in and liberated Bergen-Belsen, and with that, they had a videographer. The videographer's name was Alfred Hitchcock. We actually own the actual video of that clip you saw from the internet. We actually own that. So it is very horrific. So that's nothing new to my mother. That was my mother and father's lecture tour. And we are privileged to allow to use that video or any excerpts of the video through Cambridge University and the Imperial War Museum. A little shameless plug to be politically correct. With all that said, I will also let my mother begin to speak, but let me I'll tell you a little bit about Bergen-Belsen.
It's a lot that was
Okay. Bergen-Belsen became a collection camp for thousands of Jewish prisoners evacuated from the camps closer to the front.
less than me.
The survival of thousands of new prisoners, many of them survivors of forced evacuations on foot, overwhelmed the meager resources of the camp. With an increasing number of transports of female prisoners, the SS dissolved a portion of another camp because they didn't have enough female SS officers to take care of all these women. So they brought in what they call a large women's camp, is what this became. It was mainly women. The camp was housed women that were evacuated from a camp my mother was in. She was in Ravensbrück. She was in Mauthausen, which was a sub-camp of Buchenwald. And then there were other sub-camps as well. They were then transported by train to Bergen-Belsen.
Open train, no bubblers.
Okay, Mom, go ahead and tell them about your what you saw and when you came into Bergen-Belsen.
Okay, then don't you tell talk because I can hear your voice.
I now turn me off.
Yes.
All right, she would like the people to start asking her questions. She wants to just chime right in, since you know a little bit of the background. So please, go ahead, open your mics and start talking, one at a time.
What was it like right before the siege happened? And you were
in Poland?
Yes. What was it like? Did people think it was coming? Did people say it wasn't going to come?
This came unexpected. We didn't, it was crystal night. We didn't know all the horrible things was going on. We didn't know Dachau was before the ghetto, was many, many other camps we didn't know. We found out after the war because everything was just hush in secret. Nobody knew. All the horrors what we see today and heard today, it happened after the war. We found out, like the England, our liberators brought it up. The United States brought it up. Pictures came out, like Alfred Hitchcock came to the Bergen-Belsen. He was that time not a movie star. He was just a photographer. The movie what my daughter showed it to you, this was Alfred Hitchcock made that movie. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you. What did you do the last Saturday night before this happened?
The last night, we didn't know I was sick with typhoid. I didn't know if I'm dead or alive. I was hit with typhoid, and I didn't know what happened. After that, took a few days later, the Red Cross and England, the British Army liberated us from that horror. And the Red Cross came and asked us. I hardly could speak that time. She asked me my date of birth and where I am, and this was mine, and I conquered out. I was in a high temp, so I perked it up soon. I was over. I just became again myself.
How old were you?
Oh, about how old I was. Went into the camp. I was almost 15 years old. Hello? Helen?
Thank you.
Okay, then. Would you repeat it a little louder, speak? I couldn't hear, Helen.
Okay, I'm with you. I still can't hear it either, Catalina.
Okay,
Can you
repeat.
Catalina, can you go ahead and ask the question again? Was there any overt
It's in local.
prejudice? I see it. Was there any overt prejudice against Jews? Mom?
Yeah.
Was there any overt prejudice against the Jews?
When? Before the war? Yeah, before the war, Poland was very anti-Semitic. I'm speaking in schools, and some kids in the schools asked me the same question. How was Poland against the Jews? I told them they were very anti-Semitic. And so happened when I spoke in one school was a Polish teacher, and he explained that all the priests, they brought that horrid. They were very anti-Semitic and brought lots of anti-Semitism against the Jews. Did I answer the question?
Thank you.
Helen, you answer.
Okay, go ahead, you guys, please. I feel like you're all starstruck. You know, usually, especially Haley, everybody, please chit chat, talk, just like you were before, as we were normal people. Talk.
I have a
Hello.
question.
There you
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Which one wants to go first? Prasanna? I mean, I'd be happy to ask my question if you'd like.
Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Helen, you answer.
Okay.
My daughter will
Okay.
repeat it to me, okay? You talk to her, and she will repeat it to me, okay?
As you're sitting here in front of all of us, what lesson and what message would you like to bring to us to help us to live a better life today?
I tell you what, this is not just individual. This is anti-Semitism, and our time is growing rapidly. That's what's going now in the Arab countries. We are the blame. So I cannot tell you what can we do. We have to take it day by day and just fight against anti-Semitism. What brought up that myself and my husband brought it up to talk about Holocaust. We were the first ones in the United States, what we got proclaimed from our governor and the ADL that time to speak to the whole world and to many, many other schools. Did I answer the question to you, sir?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
I have a question. My question is, during that time when they took the Jews to the camps and stuff, were you separated by your family? From your family, I should say.
Okay, can you repeat it, Helen? Helen? You tell me.
Can you go ahead and repeat the question, please?
Okay, I asked if your mother, were you separated from your family?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I was separated right away when we came to Auschwitz. In the ghetto, we were together till our separation go to Auschwitz. We went on the train, the whole family, uncles, cousins, so forth and so on. Soon we stepped down from the train. We were separated. How he let me live, I don't know. I, myself, and my younger sister, we just stick together like glue. Like we went through the Eichmann Yemach Shemo when he just said, left or right. We just didn't know what's the meaning. And we just, till the liberation, we just stick together. I got married in 1946. After that, myself and my husband and my sister went to Israel, and my sister couldn't get out because she's a professional nurse, and that time was war, and they didn't let her out. This was our separation. This was the biggest tragedy in my life and her life, and they didn't let her go.
And
this
another
is the only sibling.
So you were separate. You never saw the rest of your family after that?
No, my youngest brother and my mom soon the approach right away went on the truck. They threw him on the truck, and they went to the gas chamber. We didn't know what and when went down. After that, the years went by. We worried. They came out with the truth, what they did to humanity. How heinous crimes they perform, gas chamber, ovens. We saw people standing up in the line when I was in Auschwitz, and close to the crematorium, and over there, like the orchestra played. It's like the last march to the dead.
When you were in the camp, did you actually know that they were sending your family and others to the gas chambers, or did
nobody was very silent? I repeat myself. It was after the war we found out what they did to the humanity. We saw movies like Bergen-Belsen. We saw other camps. That's what we found out. And otherwise, nobody knew what and when they did to humanity.
And what exactly were you doing during the time that you were in the camp?
Ellen, I couldn't hear it. Can you repeat, Ellen?
Yep. While you were in the camp, what exactly did they have you doing?
What kind of jobs?
Yeah.
I went from Auschwitz to Ravensbrück. And Ravensbrück, we were just doing nothing. We were just zombies laying on the ground and doing nothing. And no food and no drinking, starvation. After that, a few days later, they went transferred to a camp, Milhausen. In Milhausen, we was working 1,500 girls. We work in a factory, make parts to V2, to the missiles. And after that, a few months later, they transferred us, and over there looks like the Russian starting coming in closer and closer. We were transferred to the last destiny, Bergen-Belsen.
It must be really hard for you to talk about this.
Oh, it's
to
you
remember
have to be,
the pain.
I tell you, can I repeat? You have to tell the world what a crime humanity can do against other humanity. Innocent people, children unborn, just torn in two pieces. It's so much to tell. It's just hard to comprehend that what kind of cold-blooded murders what German people. I will never forgive him, and I will never forget him. Hello?
Thank you.
That is like really sad. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to hear you. And I'm a history major. I was, anyways, and I've seen films about the Holocaust and stuff. And it's sad. And I've heard stories because my grandfather was fighting in World War II against the Germans in Greece. And I've heard stories of what they did in my hometown and everything. And it was just, I can't even imagine living at that time and how I would be able to handle something like that. You are a very strong lady, and I don't know. I'm
tell you what.
Talk to you, and that you're talking to us.
Can I tell you something? A couple of weeks ago, I went to my doctor, and over there was two gentlemen. One came in, and we was sitting, and according to accent, he asked me for where I am. I said, I am from Poland, and I am a Holocaust survivor. They both stood up and salute and hug and kiss. How I made it? I said, I don't know how I made it. Maybe God gave me my will to be good to people, because I'm very good to people. I am living on very short budget. Now, every Friday we have to buy some bread and so forth, other stuff, and I'm feeding the homeless people. I know what hunger and thirst, and I never will let this. I'm doing at least by 18 years. Myself and my husband, we saw how the thing started. A family be in the car. They didn't need right away. Myself and my husband, we went to grocery, and since then, every single Friday, like God give Shabbos, I just feed the homeless people.
How many survivors do you think there are left alive, Fanny?
That's a good question, Mom. How many survivors do you think are left to survive? Or that are left?
After the war, may I ask that question, Helen?
Yes.
After the war, my husband was very close with the not Jewish Federation, I don't know, and he found out, but close to 200,000. And you know, the years went on, we unfortunate in the 80s and the 90s.
Okay, I'm going to reiterate something. You guys were asking about my mom about how do we prevent all of this and so forth and so on. One of the things that's really important to pay attention to what's going on in current events. What's going on with ISIS. I'll let my mother tell you how she feels about that. What's going on with Boko Haram. You're seeing radicalization of women. But however, what you're not seeing is that when women are caught, they're not being tried. They're not being sentenced, and they are just as bad, if not worse, than the men. And so this is a very big problem that we're having. One private example of that was recently in the news was Sarnoff, and I apologize for people who live in Boston area. But Sarnoff, his sister, said, I can take a bomb and blow you up and I won't feel any remorse, as she was stalking her boyfriend's girlfriend. She says, I'm going to bomb and blow you up. And that's what you're starting to see. You're seeing these influx of these young women. They have no scruples. It's worse than a cat fight than if you were in high school cat fighting someone. These women have no scruples. They are not afraid. However, there were also the ones that they're taking out and brainwashing as well. There is brainwashing going on as well with these young girls. So they can go ahead and attack people and kill people. Just like the Nazi women, they have no remorse. Go ahead, Mom.
Actually, I saw today on TV, pardon, and how the women sitting in a group like we were sitting in a pile, and the aces, they was just guarded. I was crying. I said, I'll just look myself. Look over there, just like the Nazis. Exactly. Where they have no people, no humanity, they don't care whom they're hurting. Hello? Where's the rabbi? I would like to talk to him.
He's not there. He's in England, Germany, in Hamburg, Mom. He told me he was in Hamburg, and that in the future they'll want to hook us up with Europe to talk about this. So please keep asking questions. Let me tell you, if everyone who watched the video, I just want to make a real quick comment. Of those who watched the video, when you saw them taking the bodies, and I know it was very graphic, there was a reason for that. The reason was that was their punishment. The bodies were riddled with lice.
Oh, you mean the SS lady?
Yes.
The assessment?
Go ahead, Mom. Tell them. Yes, please.
Hello? That, you see, they just murdered us. And the British soldiers, they forced them to bury us. But 500 people unknown, they were buried in one huge grave. There was not one grave, there were many, many other graves. You could see, I don't know how much my daughter show you, and they show in the movie what Alfred Hitchcock made it, how many graves were just, and they just take them by the hand and feed and throw them just like a piece of cloth. Sorry, I'm crying. I don't know, this was my cousin, either we all Jews or just one family. I don't care, can be not Jew, not Jewish, yes Jewish, we all people. We should be not punished like this. We didn't commit no crime against humanity that time when they punished us.
I'd like to make a comment, but it's not a question, but a comment, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. There in the news also, there are reports that there is anti-Semitism in several countries in Europe.
Yeah, Belgium, France.
Yes, and also there are these extremist Arab groups that are also anti-Semitic.
I know.
To what would you, why would you think this is happening again? Would you think that humanity would have learned better by now, but why is it repeating itself?
I cannot explain it. It's just a repeat. You know, Hitler, he left it a bad legacy. So, if I see this, you know, like somebody would take a knife in my heart, I say, why? Why? Like, I repeat it. Holland became very anti-Semitic. I have a niece over there, lives in Holland, in Amsterdam. It's on why? What we commit such a crime? Because after the war we got our country back. Took 6 million people to get our country back. I worked before, I belonged to a youth group before the war. and we fought take our country before the war. Finally, we came. Hitler, Yamach Shema, 6 million perished, not in a normal way, no, in a sadistic way, sadists. Now is another repeat.
How long were you in the camp?
What could you make a comment about my comment, what I made it to you, sir?
Well, yes, I wondered myself, and I don't know why history repeats itself the way it does.
Why we are the victim of the other people commit, like now the Arabs committing such a heinous crime. Why they don't lash out to them? Why they lashing out to us? Where's the world see just one side? Doesn't see the other side.
Yes, I agree. I have no answer. I made the comment.
Nobody can.
I think we need to face that ourselves, and the world needs to face it. Yeah.
Absolutely. No.
So with that, go ahead, Mom. I was just going to say, with that said, I had something to ask everybody, and then I would love for everybody to, if you would like to drop us a note card in the future here, so I'll read them to my mom. I would love to know what your definition of anti-Semitism is. How do you define anti-Semitism?
Oh.
And then
one rotten apple makes it everybody poison.
And I'm going to read a brilliant piece from a 16-year-old girl who was one of my mother's students who she lectured to. Anti-Semitism is a prejudice and a discrimination against Jewish people. In my opinion, anti-Semitism is relating to today's problems around the world. For example, the bullying. Both bullying and anti-Semitism are prejudice and cruel to innocent people. To reduce the number of people of anti-Semitism and bullying, we have to strive to understand each situation and admit mistakes and learn to embrace each other. She's 16 years old. She is from Japan, and she wrote that 2 years ago. So I'm going to encourage all of you to drop us a note card. Drop me a note card specifically, please. And then we will go ahead and I will read these to her, and we will print them and use them for the future, if you wouldn't mind.
You know, I think, if I may say something, the reason is because people are ignorant and don't care about their neighbors so much. And ignorance is a really bad thing. We're having problems now with ISIS, and it's not just anti-Semitic with them. They don't just hate the Jews. They hate everybody that isn't Muslim, and not even their own kind, actually, because you can't say that they're true Muslims. They are terrorists. Exactly. They are terrorists. And terrorists, no matter what, they are arrogant and ignorant, which is a deadly combination. That's just my thought on this. They hate Christians. They hate everyone that it does not support what they believe in.
They go after the Christian too. They won't just do it like the Muslims. They won't just have it, the whole world and their belief. They won't just annihilate the Christian. They won't annihilate the Jews, because we have this different beliefs in our life. We and the Christians can working together. No, with Muslims, ugly people like they are, murders, have no humanity. They don't have no remorse against humanity. They're killing their own people. They don't care. Sure, they don't care. Why should they care? the other Arab countries support them.
Unfortunately, they do. Unfortunately, not all Muslims though do support terrorism, because I have friends who are Muslim and they are against this. And you know, I know people from Egypt that were very, very
I know
upset
Egypt, they're
with.
against them. Yeah.
But anyways, the terrorists are the ones that support them. People who are ignorant, people who think that their way is the only way, and it's not. We're a big world, and everybody is different. Everybody has different beliefs, and everybody needs to respect each other's beliefs. And I think that would make a better world. But unfortunately, we do have those fanatics, and I don't know if they'll ever change. And we were talking about why we have this. We should have learned from World War II and what Hitler did. No, we don't learn from our mistakes, and that's the bad thing.
Well, just as a sort of a neutral observer, I believe that any solution in the Middle East is going to require the assistance and the commitment of moderate Muslims. So, I mean, I know we've been banting around the term terrorist a lot. I think we're really talking about a minority of people. I don't think it's, you know, anytime you paint people with a broad brush, I don't think you're doing anybody a service. I yield the mic.
You know, the only thing what I am against it, why Europe allow this kind of people spread to European, like Holland, Germany. They have now a burden on their shoulders, and they don't know how to just get rid of them. They grew like massively. They run away from their own country just to have a better life, and they're just bringing anti-Semitism against others.
I have a personal question, please.
Yeah.
For you, and that is, after having gone through this terrible ordeal and trauma for so many years,
yeah,
how were you able to then find love in your husband and able to bring yourself together and have
function
children?
normal, let's face it.
Yes, how were you able?
I wonder myself, you know, right after the war, I was like sitting in a corner and just like I went crazy and I don't want to live. That took part of my life away. I was a youngster. The best life in your life are the parents. They guide you. They taught you what and when and how. We didn't know where to turn to left, to turn to right. You didn't know who you are and what to be with your life. After that, my younger sister, God bless her, she was stronger like me. I just failed. I didn't want to live. She was strong, and one day she just took me in a corner and smacked me over the face, and left and right, and just stand up and let's continue our life. And I just start to continue. And see, like how I met my husband, he came to look for his brother. My husband was liberated in Dachau, and my brother-in-law was liberated in Bergen-Belsen. So we belong to a youth group, and this way we met. My husband alive now. Next January, the 29th, I will be married 70 years. Unfortunately, he died. He was sick. Heart trouble, all other troubles. So, good memories. Just keep me on, and that's what we started our project to fight against anti-Semitism. Keeps me going. How did you like my explanation?
Well, thank you very much. I'm really quite fascinated by how you have been able to survive and bring yourself back together and have a beautiful family and so forth after all this. So it certainly is very encouraging to me to know that people can go through trauma and ordeals like this and
many people
come through.
Not the first one. Lots of people ask me. I'm not the only one. I just give courage to people, all our survivors. How we survive, no parents, nobody. This was the biggest tragedy in our lifetime. Matter of fact, this was a few years ago. Came a psychiatrist from Switzerland. You know, we getting a pension for hard labor. And we sat and talked, and after that he asked me the same question. Then I just said to myself, you know, I will answer the question. Nobody can help you when you don't help yourself. And I told him, shall I go to the left? I will fall and die. Shall I go to the right? Keep my head and go ahead and have a family and everybody else. He sat and cried so viciously. I just cannot tell you how I explained my goal and my life.
As I was just commenting, I was typing while you were talking, Mom, that literally she calls her friends and tells them, don't be sad, strive, fight. You've been through so much. She's their cheerleader. We have one friend, he recently became a widower. And it's hard for men to become widowers when you've been married to somebody for 68 years, I mind you. It's hard. Very hard. She calls him every morning to remind him why he should be awake and why he should live.
And every night, around 8 o'clock, I call him and ask him, David, how was your day? What did you do? He's a lost soul. And I try to talk to him and just encourage. And he told me, nobody calls me. You're my best friend in the world. Ellen, that's all? Hello?
That was such a nice story.
I think you're all just shocked. Please talk. She loves to chit-chat.
There is a question in the local chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
She says here, Tifosa asks this, at what age were your children, daughter? Can you hear me?
Hold on. Let me pull up the local chat, and I'll read that to you, Mom.
Okay.
1 second. This person's name is Tifosa, and they don't have a microphone. But at what age were your children / daughter when you told them about what happened to you, and how did you tell them? Perhaps this is something Helen or Explorer can speak to as well. How old were we, Mom, when you started to tell us about the Holocaust?
Did you talk to me?
Yeah.
I couldn't repeat it, what you said.
How old were
we? Yeah.
When you told us about the Holocaust. More.
Sorry, Helen, I lost you.
How old were we?
Yeah.
When you told us.
We started very young. Not me so much like Daddy. Daddy sat down, took you and Morris and Hilda around dinner time like we had a nice meal, and he just tried to explain the hunger, the thirst, the torture. And all three of them, Helen took it very serious. My daughter, oldest daughter, she knows a lot about it. Unfortunate, I lost my son 5 years ago. That took a part of my life away. And he tried to, matter of fact, my husband, that rest in peace, he started talking already that time to my youngest grandson, great grandson, and the youngest, my both grandson. He explained it to him, what we went, not just we. He explained it, 6 million we. I just don't take just me. We are 6 millions, me.
I'm going to also answer that, if I may, as well. So what I remember vividly was, like I wrote into open chat, my father would sit down and he would read the newspaper with me, and he would pick out the articles that he wanted me to read out loud, very specifically. Some of them were in the Jewish News, our local Jewish newspaper. Some of them were in the regular news. Sometimes he would sit me down in front of the TV and have me watch Walter Cronkite, and he would, when they were talking about these things. But the biggest thing that he did was he brought me in the encyclopedias, and he said, please read. I want you to have knowledge. I want you to understand what happened. So then, as we became older, as children, my siblings, we would go to these functions, and I couldn't understand what the functions were. My father said, you're old enough. I was about 6 years old. Maybe, yeah, I was 6 years old. And he would take me in to these functions. And of course, every child gets antsy. They want to get up and run around. And he would say, you can't. People started to cry, and I could never understand why. And then every year after that, we kept going to these functions. Well, these functions are now called, in current times, is Yom HaShoah. Back then, it was just a memorial that my father and his group did as a memorial to the Holocaust survivors here in Denver. They were called the Club of New Americans. And this Club of New Americans was built around all the people who survived, or all newcomers that came from Europe, Australia, South America. They were all the survivors, and they all came together and formed this group, which my father and his friends led. Very few of them put together and led. This group, also Club of New Americans, did amazing humanitarian work. When Israel was being attacked in 1972 during the Yom Kippur War, their group bought an ambulance for Israel called the Road. They still use it in Israel, the Red Mogen David, because they don't use Red Cross in Israel. Just so you all know this, they don't use Red Cross in Israel. They use the American Red Mogen David for Israel. That's what they use. It was very powerful. And now I still wish my father was here, as my mother says, so there's so much more information I want to extrapolate out of him. The only way I found out all this other stuff was because of the internet. In 1995, the internet became alive, and with that, so did everybody finding out about the Holocaust, about the Jews, including the deniers. They came alive. They came alive and started polluting the internet with hate. And I'll let my mom explain that to you as well. Go ahead, Mom. Explain to them about the hate, about the deniers, and about the phone calls your daddy used to get in the middle of the night. This is very interesting. We would get phone calls from London, England, from a gentleman by the name... Canada. A teacher by the name of James Keithstra in Canada. He was a teacher, I mind you, until the magistrate of Canada came in and took his teaching credentials away. He's now a mechanic and an anti-Semite. David Irving, who was fighting against the British government because he says the Holocaust never happened. And why are we teaching it in our universities? He was a professor at Oxford. He also took a lawsuit against another professor here in the United States, Dr. Deborah Lipstadt, and he sued her. She wrote a book about it, David Irving. But these phone calls, I mean, I'm not kidding. We used to get letters from the KKK in our newspapers, circled with every Jewish holiday on there.
And the letter, Helen, what we got it on the paper.
Yes, I just told him about that. I mean, we used to get phone calls all the time.
Middle of the night.
Middle of the night. We still have our phone number unlisted because of these things. We still, 2 years ago, a year ago, I received a notebook in the mail. I opened it up and went, oh my gosh, and I apologize, please, if anybody here is, I do apologize, but we do not support this. It was a Messianic Bible telling us why we had to convert from Judaism to be a Messianic Jew. That was an eye-opener. That was a really big eye-opener. That's the kind of world we're living in. That's why we educate. That's why we teach you guys. Because so many people want to know so much about the Jews and why they're so powerful and all these things, and yet they want to kill these people. But why? What did I do to you?
Unfortunately, the people that really need to hear this aren't here. Then that is the anti-Semites. I know in my course of being on Second Life, I'm in my 5th year, I've actually encountered a couple of people that have been Holocaust deniers, and it's simply amazing.
Sad that they weren't here tonight. They're missing out on us being able to encounter them. I'm on the board or the member of our Second Life synagogue. One day I was building a sukkah 3 weeks ago. A hut that we use for the holidays, a ritual hut. I was building one in the virtual world, and I'm sitting there building it, and these guys came in dressed in Nazi uniforms, and one of them said, "Z, call to me." I froze. I did not turn on my mic. I froze. And then they were speaking on open mic, and one said to me, "Would you like me to feed you some Zyklon B? Would you like a sip of that?" Zyklon B is what they use as the nerve agent to kill everybody in the concentration camps. What I did is I went into, of course, land, and since I have rights, I put them right away into the eject pile and ejected them and rejected them, and so they could never come onto the sim again. But this time, Second Life again, I mean, in the past they have turned the other cheek. This time, Second Life closed down that account because of the groups that they were associated with in Second Life. He was associated with role plays that were nothing but Nazi groups. And there wasn't one of them. There was 15 groups visible that we could all see. That's the kind of world we're living in right now. And this is in the virtual world in Second Life. And so I understand where you're coming from completely, 100%.
Huh? Okay.
I'm going to reread this again to my mom. On a somewhat related note to denial, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Germans who had lived near the camps. I recall reading that many people living near the camps, not working in them, saying they had no idea what was happening around them. How do you feel about that, Mom?
That's the Polak.
The Germans that were living in the towns, right, that were living in the towns. They couldn't smell the flesh burning. They couldn't see the ashes falling from the sky that were white. They couldn't. Red. Go ahead, Mom, tell them.
The sky was red, and the human flesh burning was the horrid smell. Just, it's hard to describe it. Hay smell. We were sitting outside in Auschwitz before the crematorium and not far from the gas chamber. Yeah. Why people denying it? Why they don't accept the truth? Why we are the Jews just punish? You know, I went once to a college. This is a college, a theologian college. Priests are I asked him so many questions. I said, why we? Why not other denominations? What we commit crime in this earth, we are just. And after that, I told them, maybe our brother brought that horrid on us. And he said, Mrs. Starr, I'm a theologian, I cannot answer. I ask Rabbi, I ask every human being what is intelligent, and everybody couldn't answer me the question. Maybe you can answer the question, why we are punished, what a crime we commit in our life, and not in the thousands of years in our lifetime. Let's take it to the Pharaohs. We were punished that time. We were talking about thrown to bulls.
Let me reiterate what my mom was saying. She understands what was happening to her, but she's asked these theologians in the world, and one of them happens to be a cardinal who was eligible to be into the school of cardinal school, to be a pope, by the way, just so you know that his name is Cardinal Stafford. She specifically asked him, how did these people turn their heads and ignore this? How did the people of religion, no matter what denomination, as she was saying, turn their head and ignore this? How is that possible? How could that happen? Were they dumb? Were they blind? Were they not paying attention? Everybody knows about Pope Pius XII. And if you don't, please Google it and you'll learn a little bit. He made a deal with the devil. He made a deal with the Germans. I'll give you Jews. Don't touch the rest of my flock. Pope Paul. We all saw the stories about Pope Paul. Okay. It's the same thing that happened. Thank you for bringing that up. It was the same thing that happened in Rwanda. How did they not know that 3 million people were stuck in a hotel and killed and slaughtered? I don't know. I don't know what happened to 3 million people. They just disappeared.
Can I bring up a thing here?
I mean, 300,000. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Now, I can't answer to the whys and wherefores of before 1948 as to why the Jews were picked on, other than to say that throughout history, I suppose, there's the propaganda machines. I mean, even Shakespeare wrote a play, Shylock was in it and stuff. So throughout history, there was this propaganda that was going on, and due to people's mentalities, I think it just propagated itself over time, and then Hitler came along and used this just more propaganda to his advantage, to for this nationhood, you know. But now, but in my mind, I'm not Jewish. I'm not anti-Semitic, but looking at history and the history of that land, this is what I've come to believe is that over thousands and thousands of years, that area has been conquered by many different civilizations, at least 15 different civilizations, the Greeks, the Romans, the Assyrians, everybody has conquered. Even the Jewish had come back and reconquered the area. So what I think a lot of the animosity is in this day and age is in 1948, no, 1946, that area was primarily the Arabs, because and it still goes on to this day. To the victor belongs the spoils. That's just the mentality of mankind. Israel, the whole thing. To the victor belongs the spoils. Their wars have been done. Israel has been conquered many times by many civilizations. To the victor belongs the spoils. Now, the spoils were owned by the Arabs until somebody came along in 1948 and said, scoot over, whatever, we're giving it back to Israel. Now, I know personally, on a personal level, if I have property and somebody comes along and says, we're going to give this area of land that is yours to these people, I would have animosities towards those people. Now, that's just, again, because, like I said, just the history of the area with the wars that have been going on for thousands and thousands of years. So, that's I think that is a lot of the attitude of the Arabs in this day and age, is because they feel like they were, something was taken away from them. Now, in 1968,
but that's not how that all happened.
In 1968, I have to say that the Jews did fight and take land.
But that's not how that all happened, Steve. You got to understand, the British were the spoilers. If everybody understands, that land was occupied by the British.
That was pre-1948, exactly.
That was pre-1948, but the British were the ones that...
The Egyptians, they all... Yeah.
But the British were the ones that did this. It was the Brits that came in and said, well, we're going to give you this land. They were the ones that uprooted everybody. And, if it wasn't for the Balfour Declaration, and these are very important key things in history, and Theodore Herzl, my father's friend, my mother, the group she was in was called Beitar. She told that. She spoke about that. Beitar is...
They have an animosity. I believe the Arabs have an animosity because, they feel that...
But hold on, Beitar is now what is the Likud party in Israel, which is now Benjamin Netanyahu. My father's friend was my father was also very political. His other friend was Menachem Begin. This was very, very, very important. And we will bring that up for another time because we're almost getting close on time here. But we will bring that up for another day. We will definitely have this discussion because it is very important to understand that it was just not the Jews. It was the Brits that created this mess. And excuse my language and my pardon my French, they concluded the cholesterol mess. And yet they walked away when it all happened. They didn't even stick around to say, guess what, we're going to help you out. They didn't do that. The very same thing that the way the Brits helped the Holocaust survivors in Bergen-Belsen when they were liberated, they came in, they did not get them any mental health. They didn't do anything, whereas the Americans came in and brought in psychiatrists, brought in food, clothes.
We were on their own.
They were on their own, the same way that the Brits did it with Israel. They were on their own, identical. So these are very important things, but that's not for this topic for tonight. I mean, it is, but it's not. And because of time, that's the only reason why.
May I just say one thing? The Brits have screwed up a lot. They didn't only screw up with Israel. Israel was bought by the Brits, given to the Israelis by the Brits. It was bought from Jordan. Jordan sold them, that whole area. And that's one of the reasons, we're having all this problem. And you know what? The Brits didn't only screw up there. They screwed up in Cyprus. They screwed up everywhere.
Nothing like a little faceless slamming of the Brits, I guess.
Sorry. We love them, though. Don't get us wrong. We do love them, but their politics is a little bit, even to this day and age, no matter how you slice it, it is still very skewed. Because they don't know if they want to support ISIS because of the massive Muslim population in London. They are very confused. Their religion, gender, people, however you want to describe it. Britain is definitely confused, in my opinion, still to this day and age. But going back to one other thing I'm going to bring up real quick is how Germany now, and kind of tying in a little bit to Tifosa's question, but not really, but how Germany now, how they feel about the Holocaust, and how it's mandatory for them to learn the Holocaust in their education. It is mandatory. And that is, if it wasn't for Angela Merkel, who is an amazing chancellor, we wouldn't have any of these things right now if it wasn't for her. If she stepped down, the whole world would fall apart. Again, we're coming back to the power of women. And she took all that she saw that happened before her eyes in her own country and swore a vow that she would never allow this to happen again. However, day and age, as selfies come around and as technology goes around, there's one thing that happens now in Europe all the time. In Berlin, there is the Holocaust Memorial, an amazing memorial, right? Everybody takes selfies of there and then they post them on the internet with anti-Semitic slogans. Tons of them. Nicki Minaj just came out with a brand new CD called Only, or song called Only. And yet she uses the famous attack of Berlin with Adolf Hitler standing there, and she pretends like she's Adolf Hitler, and all her people in the video are wearing the armbands of the Nazis. And I will post that for everybody to see as we close this. This is very important. Go ahead, please.
Can I ask, would you, if there was one phrase or message that you would like to leave us from your experience, from your wisdom, one sage message that you would like to impart to us as we're closing, I guess, what would that be?
Don't forget ever what we went through. Fight against anti-Semitism. Don't let anti-Semitism grow. Just speak up. What else can I tell you, sir? It's just seeing it, what's going on, and getting literature, anti-Semitic literature. Like a few months ago, I went by just a synagogue. We saw it, big swastikas. All the synagogues comes around the holy holidays. We have to have police, guards, and so forth and so on. When I came in 1951, you just walked into any temple. Well, no police. Now the anti-Semitism in this country is pretty bad too. Please fight against it. Speak up against it. We are the same human being like you and me and millions of others. We didn't commit no crime.